Welcome back, y'all. This is the second episode of our college football breakdown for each team. The first episode was the Ohio State preview. Today we're doing the Clemson one, so we're just knocking out our two favorite teams for the first two episodes. But, I mean, just to kind of get right into it, obviously, those of you guys who know me know I'm a huge Clemson fan. We haven't been in the playoff in, 3 seasons? I think the last time we made it was with Trevor
Lawrence, Justin Fields game?
Yeah, when we lost to LSU big.
No, that's when you lost to Ohio State. When
was it?
Justin Fields beat Trevor Lawrence, and then we lost to Alabama in the championship.
So we beat y'all the first time, and then we lost to LSU, and then we lost to y'all the second year. Okay. Really? That's crazy. So yeah, we haven't been to playoffs since like 2021. I think it feels like it's been longer, just because not this year, this past year, but the year before we were 10-3 or 11-3, and then 11-3 again, whatever it was. But I mean, I'm fully confident in Clemson this year as a Clemson fan. I mean, I'm confident every year, obviously. 2 years ago, you heard a lot of the talk about how Clemson, the dynasty, is over because we had lost to Pitt, and then we lost 2 other games. I forget who. We lost to Pitt when they won the ACC championship, and we lost 2 other games, and then won our bowl game against Iowa State, I believe. And everybody said that the dynasty was over. But in my eyes, it was just the offensive coordinator. I think now that we brought over Garrett Riley from TCU, you saw what their offense was like with Dugan and Quentin Johnston and stuff like that. I think Klubnik is better than Dugan. So I think once you put the right scheme around him, obviously our weapons weren't used to the full potential as last year with DJ and the 2 quarterback situation. But I think, like I said, as a Clemson fan, when I look at the schedule, which I'll pull up in a few minutes, I am fully confident we can go 12-0. There's only 2 games I'm worried about, which is Notre Dame and Florida State, both losable games, obviously. But I'm fully confident that we're going to be back in the playoffs this year. I don't know if we'll be able to win the championship with a young Cade Klubnik, but I think depending on how the offseason went with Garrett Riley and what game plan and kind of playbook and scheme that he's installing, our defense is always going to be good. We lost a bunch of pieces in defense, but we're just reloading. Xavier Thomas came back. He's back for like his 6th year or something crazy like that. And he was always one of our best defensive linemen. He was hurt with COVID, out with COVID in 2021 during the bad season. Last year he was hurt. I think he broke his foot or something. So I fully anticipate him being a difference maker. Our entire defensive line, Tyler Davis came back. To me, he's the best defensive tackle in the country when he's healthy. Obviously, 2 years ago, again, torn biceps, so he didn't really do much. But I think he's the best defensive tackle in the country, not the best defensive line. I think the best defensive tackle in the country. But I do think we have the potential to have the best defensive line in the country, if not top 5, the best defensive line in the country. Dabo Swinney has always had good defenses. Even when Brent Venables left, we still had a top 5 defense in the nation in our quote unquote down year when we went 11-3. So like I said, I fully anticipate us being back in the playoffs. Finishing top 10. We finished top 10 this year, I think, or 12 maybe. I think we lost late to South Carolina and then Tennessee. But I think we'll be in the running per usual. I don't have the full confidence to say we're going to win the championship. I think it's possible. It just depends what kind of, like I said, offense that Garrett Riley installs.
Yeah, my concern with Clemson, specifically this year, is the receivers, right? And talking to Steven earlier. You see, they didn't have a receiver last year that was over 605 yards. Now, obviously, Shipley was a monster. I know I called him mid in the middle of the season, but he obviously proved me wrong. And I think they're going to lean on Shipley heavily, both in the passing game and in the receiving game. But my concern is what happens when teams are able to or do take away Will Shipley. I don't think that Clemson, a place that probably, especially in recent history, has a claim for wide receiver U, has that guy. They don't have the T. Higgins, and we know all the names of wide receivers that have gone through Clemson. They don't have the guy like they normally do. But like you mentioned, I think Clemson on defense is going to be Clemson on defense. They have some stars back, Trotter's back, Carter's back. They're going to be who they are on defense. My concern is what they look like on offense and can they get a weapon, especially outside of Will Shipley in the receiving game.
Yeah, and I mean, as I look at the defense, we did lose Miles Murphy,
Yeah.
Brzee, and we lost KJ Henry. So, but when I just look at like the linebacking core, the secondary, I think we low key might have the best defense, if not the best defense in the country, and easily the best defense in the ACC. Just I mean, with Wade Wood as Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and Barrett Carter, those three linebackers, like we shouldn't have any issues in the linebacking category. They're all super athletic. Obviously, Barrett Carter can play. He can play DB really. I think our biggest concern is going to be the corner position. Nate Wiggins got ate up against Wake Forest, but then he had a big game. Who was it? I forget who was again, but he had a pick six, a scoop and score, I believe. So he kind of came on late. But I mean, with another year under his belt, I like our defense. I mean, it's really just going to come down to, like you said, the receivers. I'm not worried about Will Shipley at all. I'm not worried about Phil Maffa. I'm not worried about Cade. It's just going to come down to, can the receivers make plays for the quarterback? Because Cade is not Deshaun Watson. I mean, at the end of the day, he's not Deshaun Watson. Right. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Johnny Manziel. He can't pull out of his ass. He needs help. He's going to need help.
Yeah, I don't know if Cade, and I think Cade is going to be a good pocket passer, right? But I don't know if Cade is a guy that could be the Clemson offense by itself, like some of those guys you mentioned.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it comes down to that. I think realistically, even if Clemson were to lose a game, I think we could still get in. It just depends how we lose that game. Like I said, if we lose to Notre Dame or Florida State, I'm assuming Florida State doesn't go undefeated at that point, obviously. But if we were to lose to one of those teams, I think we could still get in the playoffs. I mean, even this past year when we were 11-1, I think we were number 7. And I think if we would have beat South Carolina and then went on to win the ACC like we did, we wouldn't have any issues. I think we would have got in, especially because USC fell to Utah. I think they fell to them. So I think we would have got in. Who did USC lose to?
Did they lose to Utah late, or I know they lost the game super late, the last week of the season, but they lost to Utah in the middle of the season. That's the game where Dalton Kincaid went on.
I thought they played them again in the Pac-12 championship.
Oh, was it them again? Okay,
it might not have been. Did UCLA beat USC?
No,
they didn't, right?
They beat UCLA.
Okay, yeah, I think they lost to Utah in the Pac-12 championship. I could be wrong. So I think we had a chance to get in, but we just screwed up, lost to South Carolina, and then obviously losing to Tennessee kind of left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. But we were 11-1 heading into those last 2 games. So for me, at least, I don't think we'd have any issues winning the ACC this year. Florida State, I'm comfortable saying they're back now. They're getting a lot of recruits. Willie Taggart is really good at coaching, obviously. They're getting a lot of 5 stars, 4 stars, a lot of transfers. He's got the transfer from Michigan State. Keon Johnson, I believe his name was. Keon something, the transfer out of Florida State. I mean, out of Michigan State is with Florida State now. So, I mean, I think they're going to be solid. So when we talk about them, I mean, we're going to bring Christian on the show. I mean, y'all haven't seen him in a while, but so, I mean, I think it's going to come down to, just like we said with Ohio State in the last episode, it's going to come down to the Notre Dame game and then the Florida State game. I think.
What do you think what about North Carolina? I mean, they got Drake May.
I mean, I think they'll be a decent team. I just don't think they're good on defense. Okay. At the end of the day, like 40 points is going to win you the game, but not against good defenses. Like, I mean, when they played against Oregon in the Poncedia Bowl, I think, or whatever bowl that was in San Diego at Petco Park,
that big shootout.
I think they lost like 21-14. Like they couldn't score, and Oregon is not a top defense. And I mean, they were without Josh Downs and stuff like that, but I think when they play against harder defenses, the fact that they don't have a good defense is going to kill them. Now, if you're playing against a team that can't play defense and it's 50-54, like cool, but I don't know if Drake May can do it by himself. Because I mean, Lamar Jackson couldn't do it by himself against Clemson, and he was doing damn near everything, and he couldn't win. Heisman type player. So it'll come down to those 2 games. But I think my preview for them would be at least an ACC championship, and maybe a playoff berth. I would have them finishing at like top 6, top 7 at the end of the year, but it wouldn't surprise me if they were top 4.
Yeah, I would say the ACC has been getting much closer. I think there was obviously a period where Clemson was just dominating the ACC. I think you have teams like Florida State, and hopefully we're seeing somewhat of the resurgence of Florida State. Not that I want Clemson to get knocked off the mantle, but I think just good football. And I think Clemson needs another good rivalry, in the ACC. But yeah, I kind of expect the same. I think Florida State, and we'll talk about that when we get to them. I think they may be getting a little bit overrated. I watched the Florida State Clemson game, and while that game looked close, in terms of if you look at the score, I don't think it was ever in doubt for Clemson. And then Notre Dame, a lot of moving parts there, but I think Clemson again, Dabo, just the consistency. I think this is, and again, we talk about all the players they brought back on defense. I think this is going to be a team where the defense may have to carry them, especially in some of the bigger games. But Clemson has been doing that for years, and I think they'll be able to. So I expect them to win the ACC. I think them getting into the playoffs is going to be a style point thing, and my concern is their offense. I think they're going to win some ugly games. So I think it's going to depend on, one, if they drop a game, and it's hard in the ACC if you drop a game, and then two, kind of that style point thing. If they go 12-0, I think they're in. But if they did drop one, there's some concern there for them getting in. But I do think they'll win the ACC.
And I think one thing that I didn't say that's big is the Florida State and the Notre Dame game are both in Clemson.
Yes.
So I think that helps out a lot, obviously. Both of those games last year were away games. Obviously, we ended up beating Florida State, but we lost to Notre Dame. So I think being at home, being one of the better home field advantages is going to help out. So
I expect that, especially that Florida State game. I suspect that's going to be a game day game. That's probably going to be Clemson at night. The stadium's going to be rocking. I think Clemson fans, especially, that's a couple weeks in. If Florida State is kind of at least somewhat of who we suspect they're going to be, Death Valley's going to be rocking. And it's going to make it hard for Florida State. That's going to be Florida State's first real test too.
Does Notre Dame always play on ABC?
They play on NBC, but I think it depends on who they're playing.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's the only one.
So their station is NBC, but they will.
That's kind of crazy that they already have that game marked out of they don't have no other game marked but that one.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what the deal is there, but
and we'll be going to that one too.
And I wouldn't be surprised if you look both. It says time to be announced. I wouldn't be surprised if Clemson made both of those games night games.
And I think it'll come down to how good if they're both undefeated or if one of them only has one loss. Obviously, if Clemson is 4-4, they're not about to be a night game.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that's a good fact, right? But good point. But I think if both of those games are ranked versus ranked, we may be looking at top 10 versus top 10 or top 10 versus top 15. I think Clemson, to really take advantage of that advantage that they would have by being at home, would make both of those night games.
The best part about that is we're going to be at that game, baby.
Yes.
So hopefully we get that W, man. And that's going to be it for the Clemson preview, y'all. Hopefully we get the playoffs. We'll come back to this. We'll repost it if we do. All right, y'all.